Jake stood in the lobby of the Lakeside Resort, the soft sound of water lapping at the shore outside mixing with the gentle hum of conversation around him. He looked around, taking in the high wooden beams and the large windows that framed the sparkling lake. This was a place where people came to relax, to escape their busy lives. But for Jake, it was just another moment of uncertainty, another trip chosen for the peace he desperately needed. After a long day on the road, he was tired and felt out of place. He had been working non-stop at a job that soured his spirit, and now he owned a small cabin by the lake, a gift from his late grandmother that he rarely visited. He decided to check into the resort for a weekend. Maybe he could find some clarity, maybe he could heal. The woman at the front desk smiled brightly as if she had known him for years. "Welcome to Lakeside Resort." "Martinez," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. She typed something on the computer, her fingers dancing over the keys. Moments felt like hours when you were nervous, and Jake could feel the sweat forming at the back of his neck. The smiling woman's fingers suddenly froze, her eyes widened. "Oh dear," Mr. Jake's heart sank. He stammered, feeling the weight of the world tilt on its axis. She exclaimed, unable to contain her excitement. "It was a part of your grandmother's estate." The room began to spin. Jake barely heard the woman ramble on about how he had inherited the entire resort. At that moment, he felt as if he had been dropped into a scene from a movie, a twist he couldn't quite grasp. He remembered his grandmother, how she always spoke fondly of the resort, sharing stories of laughter and family gatherings. But owning it was something he never imagined. His mind raced. What did this mean? Would he have to run the place? The thought of managing a resort was both thrilling and terrifying. He inhaled sharply, attempting to collect himself. The woman guided him through the check-in process, her smile reassuring. She handed him a map of the resort and gave him a key to one of the best suites. As he walked away, he felt the eyes of the staff on him, the air buzzing with whispers. He could sense that they were unsure how to treat him now that they knew he was their boss. Jake stepped into his suite and closed the door behind him. His heart was still racing, and he sank onto the plush sofa. The view of the lake stretched before him like a shimmering canvas, but it held no answers to the turmoil inside. He picked up the key and examined it closely. He muttered to himself. After a few hours of trying to process this shocking news, he wandered out to explore the resort. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue over everything. Families were gathered, kicking up sand on the beach, laughing as children splashed in the water. Couples strolled hand in hand, clearly in love. But here he was, a man who had just learned he owned this paradise, feeling like a ghost among them. A sadness crept in, a flicker of disbelief. Doubts began to cloud his mind. He wanted nothing but happiness for everyone around him, but could he really handle this? His thoughts were interrupted by a cheerful voice. It was a woman in a bright blue swimsuit, her hair plaited into a long braid. "I guess you could say that," he replied with a half-hearted smile. "I'm Mia," she said, extending her hand. "If you need a guide, I'd be glad to show you around." Jake hesitated. There was something genuine about her. "I'm Jake," he replied, shaking her hand firmly as she beamed up at him. Mia's energy was contagious, and somehow he felt a little lighter. Together they wandered around the resort. She pointed out the best hiking trails, the hidden corners of the beach, and the perfect spots to catch the sunset. As they talked, it felt good to be temporarily free from the weight of ownership. For a while, he could simply enjoy the beauty of the world around him. "There's something magical about this place," Mia said, her eyes sparkling. Jake listened intently, captivated not just by the beauty of the resort, but by the warmth radiating from her. "Well, it comes with challenges," she admitted, walking along a rocky path, "but mostly it's about creating memories for others." Her words struck a chord. Jake realized he wanted that too, memories. He needed to make some of his own, fight the weariness deep inside. He asked, his curiosity piqued. Mia chuckled softly. "Sometimes." He contemplated this, feeling a sense of longing grow inside him. Jake knew he had been missing something purpose. As the sky darkened into deep hues of orange and purple, they reached a lookout point where the lake shimmered like a sea of stars. Mia leaned against the railing, taking a deep breath. "This is my favorite spot," she said. They stood there in comfortable silence, and for a moment Jake felt unburdened. The fear of ownership and responsibility felt distant. It was just him and the vast expanse of nature. But reality hit as they made their way back. Jake knew that the smile Mia wore today might fade tomorrow when she realized he was in fact her boss. The thought unsettled him. The following morning he returned to the lobby, his mind racing with questions. He was met by the same smiling woman from the day before. "Good morning, Mr. Martinez." "Right, staff meeting," he said, swallowing hard. He felt a knot forming in his stomach. The thought of being in charge was daunting. Did he really want to take on this responsibility? What if the employees expected more from him than he could give? As noon approached, he paced the lobby, rehearsing what he might say. Each word felt harder to form. He wanted to inspire them, but all he could think about was how inadequate he felt. When the time came, Jake took a deep breath and entered the meeting room. The staff gathered around a large table, expressions ranging from curious to apprehensive. Jake's heart thumped in his chest. "Hello everyone," he began, his voice cracking slightly. The room went silent, a mix of shock and surprise filling the air. He glanced at Mia sitting in the corner, her hands clasped neatly in her lap. "I know this is sudden," he continued, "and I'm still figuring things out, but I want to be here for you." Slowly, a hand went up. It was one of the maintenance staff. Jake faltered. He couldn't very well say he didn't have a plan. "I love this resort. I want to keep its essence." Murmurs spread through the room, and he could see the staff relaxing. They wanted to be heard. They shared stories about the resort, the joys and the struggles. Hour by hour, Jake felt the clouds of doubt lift. He was part of a team, not just an owner. He could help create a space where everyone felt loved. Days turned into weeks, and the more he interacted with the staff, the more he understood them. They were not just employees, they were family. They shared meals, laughter, and their lives. Finally, he felt anchored again. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, Jake and Mia stood at the beach, watching the day end. "You've changed," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. Jake sighed with contentment. "I think I finally found my purpose. This resort isn't just a business to me anymore." Mia smiled, and for that moment everything fell into place. Jake had gone from feeling lost to creating a home out of a place he thought was just an inheritance. He could be an owner and, more than that, a friend. As the stars began to twinkle above, Jake realized he wasn't just in charge of something. He was adding to a legacy, filling it with laughter, love, and memories, just as his grandmother had once done. That night, standing by the shore, Jake let the sounds of the lake wash over him and knew he would never look at the resort the same way again. The heavy wooden door creaked open, and Jake stepped into the warmth of the Lakeside Resort lobby. The distant sound of laughter intertwined with the gentle lapping of waves against the shore, creating a tapestry of summer bliss. As he approached the front desk, he felt an odd mixture of anticipation and anxiety stir in his stomach. Little did he know, the moment he checked in quietly would set off a whirlwind of events that would change his life forever. "Welcome to the Lakeside Resort," the friendly receptionist chirped, her bright smile lighting up the room. I'm Jake Martinez." "Just checking in for the weekend," he replied sheepishly, trying to mask his unease. He was just a regular guy hoping to escape the pressure of city life, a chance to breathe and recharge. The receptionist's fingers danced across the keyboard, her eyes narrowing as she watched the screen. "Let's see." Her voice took on a playful tone, as if she were sharing a secret. Jake's heartbeat quickened, confusion swirling through his mind. The lovely lobby began to feel like a dream, the warm glow fading into shadows of doubt. She tapped a few more keys, her smile widening. "Yes, it looks like your grandmother left it all to you in her will. The cabins, the staff, everything." The air cracked with disbelief. Jake felt the weight of the world pressing against him as he stood frozen in place. His grandma had always talked about the resort, how it was her piece of paradise, but he never thought it would land in his lap. He stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "Absolutely." She handed him a welcoming packet, still bubbling with excitement, while Jake struggled to process the monumental news. A flood of memories washed over him, the summers spent at the resort, the laughter echoing through the halls, his grandmother's voice recounting tales of family gatherings by the lake. Before he could grasp the implications of his inheritance, she ushered him through the process of checking in. "You'll love it here," she said, as if she were his tour guide. As he took the key and headed to his suite, the weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Would he really have to run this place? Could he handle it? The thought made him question everything he thought about himself. Once inside his suite, he dropped his bag to the floor. Size, comfort, and the view of the lake seemed surreal, but his mind was racing. Would he have to manage staff, create a guest experience? The reality felt far too immense. He slumped onto a plush chair, rubbing his temples in disbelief. But something stirred within him, a flicker of curiosity. Instead of settling in, Jake decided to explore. He stepped outside, the warm breeze enveloping him like a hug from an old friend. The sight of families splashing in the water and couples strolling along the shore pulled at his heartstrings. As he wandered, he came upon an outdoor dining area complete with smiling staff serving customers. A voice called out. A cheerful woman in a bright blue sundress waved at him. There was something bright and infectious about her spirit. Yeah, I'm Jake," he said, trying to shake off the heaviness that clung to him. "I'm Mia. I've been working here for a couple of years now," she explained, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I guess I'm just trying to escape for the weekend," he replied, tentatively letting his guard down. Mia laughed. Her playful challenge sent his stomach into knots. Own it, he was just a guy searching for peace, but that thought lingered in his mind. Maybe she was right, he asked, genuinely curious. Mia leaned against the railing, her expression softening. "It's not always easy, but when you see families having fun and creating memories, it's worth it." Jake felt a swell of longing. She urged, a smile breaking across her face. Encouraged by Mia's energy, Jake decided to spend the next few days exploring every cranny of the resort. He met staff who shared their stories and dreams. Each interaction chipped away at the sense of dread that had originally taken root. He recognized the spirit of connection was woven into the very fabric of the place where he had spent so many cherished moments as a child. On the third day of his unexpected adventure, Jake stood at the watercraft rental station in the early morning light, the mist dancing on the lake's surface. He looked out at the stillness, the world around him gently urging him to move forward, but his mind was a storm of thoughts, fear battling dreams. Mia greeted him, a bright smile illuminating her face. "Ready for your paddleboard lesson?" "Not at all." There was a lightness to her demeanor that was contagious. As they made their way to the lake, he felt himself begin to relax. Although he was grappling with overwhelming uncertainty, he wanted to embrace this journey. With each fall and rise on the paddleboard, laughter erupted, cutting through the haze of doubt. It was liberating. They splashed in water together, and Jake couldn't remember the last time he had laughed like a child. His heart felt lighter, the worries that had consumed him faded with every stroke. Mia beamed at him when he finally found his balance. "See." As they paddled through the clear waters, Jake began to see the resort through a different lens. He envisioned not just a place to escape, but a sanctuary where people could recreate joyful memories. He could build on the foundation his grandmother had set, breathing new life into the place he had inherited, but the reality was daunting. He asked Mia as they floated under the sun, bathed in golden rays. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how you learn from them. This is a chance for growth," she replied with reassuring confidence. Jake contemplated her words, realizing they resonated more deeply than he expected. He thought about how he had always played it safe, never taking the risks that could lead to something great. Perhaps this was his moment, an opportunity to embrace both fear and joy. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake gathered the staff for a meeting. Heart pounding, he stood at the front of the room. It felt surreal, so different from his ordinary life. "I just want to say thank you for everything you do for this place," he started, nerves tingling in his voice. "I know I'm new here and I have a lot to learn." An employee raised their hand. Jake had prepared for this question in his head, but now it spilled out without hesitation. "I want us to create unforgettable experiences." Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. Jake's confidence swelled. With each passing minute in the meeting, he felt a stirring deep within, a sense of duty to honor his grandmother's legacy. He wanted to create a space of love, joy, and community. As the meeting wound down, Mia approached him with a grin, her eyes sparkling. "I just needed a little push, I think," he admitted, feeling energized. They shared a moment of understanding, kindred spirits bound by the pulse of the resort. Over the following weeks, Jake poured his heart into every decision, every plan. He worked closely with Mia and the staff, brainstorming ideas for special events and family activities that would create memories that would last a lifetime. Slowly, he began feeling more like an owner, someone who belonged. One afternoon, while setting up a treasure hunt for the kids, Jake noticed how the laughter filled the air, combining with the warm smell of food wafting from the restaurant. He smiled, realizing he was no longer a ghost in this space. He was alive with purpose. Each day felt like a new layer of joy. Jake learned the names of the guests and the stories behind their visits. They shared moments, candlelit dinners by the water, sunrise yoga, campfire sing-alongs. The resort experienced a renaissance and the guests responded with enthusiasm. They returned to the lobby filled with love and laughter, further intertwining their lives with the place that beckoned them. But amid the joy, challenges crept in, issues with permits, unexpected expenses. Each time he faced a setback, Jake thought back to Mia's words about mistakes. He learned that owning the resort was not only about the beautiful moments, but also navigating storms with the strength of his team beside him. One night, under a sky splattered with stars, Jake and Mia found themselves sitting on the beach, surrounded by the gentle sound of the waves. Mia asked, her eyes shining like the stars above. Jake took a deep breath, the familiar feeling of gratitude washing over him. "Yet here you are," she said softly. In that moment, Jake understood the true weight of what his grandmother had left him. It wasn't just a resort, it was the chance to build a community, to be the anchor for those seeking solace and joy. Weeks turned into months, and as summer rolled into fall, the resort transformed into a seasonal wonder. Families brimmed with laughter, nostalgic traditions began anew, and a sense of home blossomed in the hearts of both guests and staff. It was more than just business, it was a thriving family brought together by shared experiences. One evening, during an outdoor bonfire, Jake stood with Mia and the staff, united by the firelight. Each face illuminated with love. He couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey that had brought him here, the check-in that changed everything. Remembering the quiet moment when he first learned he was the owner, Jake now understood one powerful truth. Ownership wasn't just about responsibility, but also about nurturing dreams and creating a legacy. As he looked around, he found a fierce conviction rising in his heart. He owned the resort, yes, but more importantly, he owned the joy born from connection, and the laughter echoed night after night. From that moment on, Jake vowed to keep that spirit alive for generations to come. He stepped into the warm embrace of the Lakeside Resort lobby, the scent of damp pine and fresh linen wrapping around him like a cozy blanket. Jake Martinez stood quietly, feeling a swell of nostalgia wash over him. The wooden beams above, the large windows framing the tranquil lake outside, all felt hauntingly familiar. He figured he would spend the weekend here, trying to shake off the stress that clung to him like a second skin. But as he moved toward the front desk, a strange sense of anticipation vibrated in the air. The receptionist greeted brightly. Her name tag read Emily, and her smile seemed genuine. Jake Martinez, just checking in, he replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. With a quick tap 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 on the keyboard, Emily's smile faltered. Mr. Martinez, she looked up with wide eyes. You're not just checking in. The world tilted on its axis for a moment. Jake stammered, feeling lightheaded as he tried to process her words. She exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. Your grandmother left it to you in her will, the cabins, the beach, everything. He felt a rush of disbelief mingled with a slight thrill. Memories of summer vacations spent here as a child flooded back, his grandmother's laughter, the warmth of family gatherings, the endless games on the beach. But now, owning this place, his heart raced as he stood frozen, caught between shock and wonder. He asked, half laughing, half incredulous. Absolutely, let me get your paperwork sorted, Emily said, her fingers nimbly typing away. She handed him a welcome packet complete with a map, rules, and guidelines. Jake barely registered any of it as he took the key to his suite, still trying to wrap his mind around the news of his sudden inheritance. The chaos buzzed in his mind as he made his way to his room, the heavy wooden door closing behind him with a thud. The suite was lavish in a rustic way, wooden furnishings, cozy blankets, and a breathtaking view of the lake that sparkled under the afternoon sun. He sank into an armchair, overwhelmed. What did it mean to own a resort? He pictured himself in meetings, discussing budgets and staffing, but it was too much. He wasn't prepared for this kind of responsibility. With a sigh, he reminded himself he had only intended to take a break from life, not to dive headfirst into what felt like a new world. After an hour of wrestling with his thoughts, a voice outside pulled him from his reverie. Hey there, Jake glanced out to see a woman in a bright floral sundress, her hair bouncing in the light breeze. It was Mia, a staff member, judging by her name tag. Her cheerful demeanor was like a ray of sunshine breaking through a cloudy sky. I'm Jake, he managed, forcing a smile. Nice to meet you, Jake. If you need a guide around here, I'm your girl. Thanks, but I think I'm okay, he replied, not wanting to impose. Mia pressed a teasing glint in her eyes. Trust me, you'll want to know all the best spots. At her words, Jake felt that flicker of intrigue again. Part of him was drawn to her enthusiasm. He nodded, deciding to follow her intuition. Mia led Jake through the property, her excitement infectious. She exclaimed as they reached the lakeshore. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting everything in a golden hue. Families played in the shallow waters, laughter echoing against the stillness, and for a moment Jake felt himself relax. Amid the breathtaking views, Mia shared stories of their guests. Every summer, we have families who return year after year. Her passion resonated with Jake. He hadn't thought of the resort in that way, the emotional connections and the importance of community. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in oranges and purples, Jake leaned against a weathered dock, watching the water shimmer. He realized this place was more than just property, it held memories and experiences. That feeling of belonging tugged at his heartstrings. Mia's voice broke through his thoughts, gentle yet firm. You know, if you really own this place, you can create those memories too. Her words echoed in the quiet of the lakeside. Could he truly become a part of something bigger? A wave of excitement surged within him. Maybe this wasn't such a bad fate after all. The next morning, Jake decided to explore. He got up early, the soft chirping of birds welcoming the day. He wandered towards the main lodge, intent on meeting the staff and perhaps learning more about the resort. As he entered the restaurant, the air was filled with the savory scent of breakfast, a feast for the senses. A cheerful voice greeted him. An older man, probably in his 50s, stood behind the breakfast bar. I'm Tom, the head chef here. Jake felt a rush of warmth. Yes, that's me. Great, we're always looking to improve our menu with fresh ideas. Tom handed Jake a plate piled high with eggs, bacon, and pancakes. Moved by the camaraderie and Tom's enthusiasm, Jake realized he was starting to feel like part of the team. He spent breakfast chatting with Tom and a couple of other staff members. They exchanged stories and laughs, bantering as if they'd known each other for years. The comfort wrapped around him, and he began to imagine the impact he could have on this place. By midday, he felt emboldened. He announced during an impromptu meeting with the staff, "We can have games, a barbecue, maybe some music." Bring everyone together, eyes lit up around the room. Mia exclaimed. For the first time since he'd arrived, Jake felt at ease. The prospect of hosting a weekend of celebration ignited a spark within him. As the brainstorming session unfolded, he was amazed at how easily ideas bounced around the room, each contributing to the vision that was swiftly taking shape. Over the next few weeks, Jake poured himself into preparing for the family weekend, lending his newfound enthusiasm to everything. There were planning meetings, crafting signs, and organizing games. It felt satisfying as he got to know everyone better, staff and guests alike. As the weekend approached, Jake's excitement turned into nerves. Had he done enough? Would families appreciate the effort he had put into this? He stood on the porch of the lodge, watching as families began to arrive, their laughter echoing in the air like a melody. Mia said, sidling up beside him, "You've done amazing work." As the sun set on the first night, families gathered under twinkling lights, sharing stories over delicious food. Music filled the air, and children ran around in delight. The joy blossomed like wildflowers, and Jake finally allowed himself to breathe. In that moment, adorned by warmth and laughter, he understood the magnitude of what he had inherited. This wasn't merely a resort, it was a cradle of memories being crafted anew. The experience was buoyant, full of connection and love, but as the weekend rolled on, unpredictability struck. During one of the planned games, a sudden rainstorm swept in, sending thunder rolling through the sky. Kids gasped, adults scrambled to find cover. Jake felt a wave of panic rise. Would all their planning and effort dissolve in an instant? But just then, Mia grabbed his arm, her eyes lit with enthusiasm. "Let's move it inside." As if guided by her light, Jake rallied the staff, and they quickly transitioned the games indoors. Laughter erupted again as kids played hide-and-seek through the lodge, and families found themselves engaged in board games. A miracle unfolded in that very moment. What could have been chaos transformed into connection. Jake found himself standing at the center of it all, watching the joy bloom around him. Realized it wasn't about having everything perfect, it was about community and resilience. Here, laughter thrived amid the rain, creating memories stronger than storms. As the night wound down, families gathered around a bonfire under the sheltering trees, stories and warmth weaving through conversations. Jake sat next to Mia, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. "You did it," she said softly, nudging his shoulder. "I couldn't have without you guys," he replied, his heart swelling with gratitude. As the embers flickered and danced, he listened to the laughter and chatter of new friends around him. Jake felt a bond being forged not just with the people around him, but with the very essence of the resort. Weeks turned into months, and as summer shifted into the colors of fall, the resort thrived. Visitors returned, families brought their children to relive the traditions Jake had begun. His grandmother's legacy lived on, enriched by the joy he helped create, but challenges were never far away. As winter set in, attendance dwindled and Jake faced financial strains. The weight of ownership pressed down on him again, making the air feel heavier. Doubts crept in as he wrestled with the realities of sustaining a business, but the very community he had built rallied behind him. "You've done so much for us," an employee voiced during a meeting. Jake felt tears sting his eyes as ideas began to flow. They came up with winter festivals, holiday celebrations, and cozy retreats. Together, they crafted plans that infused life into the resort during the harsh season. Once again, he learned that ownership wasn't just about responsibilities, but about unity and caring for one another. The support uplifted him and rekindled his spirit. Years passed, and as he stood looking over the grounds one crisp afternoon, he marveled at the journey that had unfolded. The resort had transformed into a local treasure, a sanctuary for those seeking refuge and happiness. Each moment spent breathing life into that place filled him with warmth. Mia approached him, a knowing smile gracing her face. Jake chuckled softly, glancing at the families playing in the distance. "You've not just inherited a resort," she replied, her voice sincere. Jake felt the truth in her words, a wave of emotion flooding through him. He realized he hadn't just checked into a hotel. He had checked into a dream, a legacy, and a family he would cherish forever. In that moment, with the sun setting into a tapestry of colors, he embraced his role as the owner, not just of a property, but of happiness, joy, and a community that thrived on love. Jake hadn't simply found a way to escape, he had discovered where he truly belonged. The heavy wooden door swung open with a soft creak, revealing the warmth of the Lakeside Resort lobby. Jake Martinez stepped inside, momentarily lost in the sweet scent of fresh pine and the laughter of families that echoed throughout the spacious room. It felt comforting yet foreign, like a long-lost memory tugging at the corners of his mind. He had come to escape for just a weekend, hoping to shake off the weight of his hectic life in the city, but standing there, he had no idea how much this one check-in would change everything. Said the receptionist, a cheerful woman with bright eyes. "Jake Martinez just checking in," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. His heart raced a bit, feeling slightly out of place amidst the picturesque surroundings. Her fingers began to dance across the keyboard, but suddenly she hesitated. "Oh, this is unexpected. Mr. Jake's heart skipped a beat. "It says here, you actually own this resort," she announced with a mix of surprise and excitement. He felt the ground tilt beneath him. His mind raced with disbelief. "Your grandmother left it to you in her will, this entire place, everything." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Stunned, he stood rooted in place, processing what he had just heard. The resort was a place where he had spent summers as a boy, chased by the carefree joys of youth, endless days swimming, fishing, and laughing with his family. But owning it, the idea felt surreal. He half laughed, half gasped. The receptionist shook her head undeterred. "No mistake," she turned back to her screen while Jake stood there, the weight of her words pressing down on him, sending his mind into a chaotic spiral. After what felt like an eternity, she handed him a welcome packet and a key with a smile. "Here you go, Mr. Martinez." As he wandered to his suite, he felt as if he were walking through a dream. The plush carpet underfoot, the grand chandeliers hanging from high ceilings, the world around him shimmered with possibility. But with every step, a heavy sense of responsibility began to settle on his shoulders. What did it mean to own a resort? What would he have to do? When he finally entered his room, he dropped his bag on the bed, the exhaustion of travel washing over him. The view of the lake was stunning. He sank into a chair on the balcony, the waves gently lapping against the shore, the sun casting a warm glow over everything. But as serenity washed over him, self-doubt surged. Could he really manage this? The thought of running a resort felt overwhelming. After a long moment of contemplation, he decided to explore. He wandered outside, letting the soft breeze guide him down toward the lake. As he meandered through the property, laughter surrounded him, echoing against the trees. Families were gathered, children playing, towels strewn across the sand. He felt a pang of envy. They looked so happy, so free. A bright voice broke through his thoughts. It belonged to a woman wearing a colorful sundress, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Kind of, he admitted. I'm Mia, she grinned, extending a hand in greeting. Are you new here? Just checking in, he said, doing his best to play it cool. But something about her enthusiasm drew him in. Mia's eyes widened. No way, that's incredible. Jake chuckled, a little nervous. I've always just been a corporate guy. Come on, she insisted, her energy infectious. As she led him through the resort, Jake found himself captivated by her joy. She pointed out the best picnic areas, the favorite fishing spots, and the hidden trails. Everything felt alive, vibrant. Each little story she shared painted a picture of community, of family traditions built over years. He watched the way she spoke of the guests as though they were her own family, and it struck a chord within him. Imagine the memories we can create here, she said wistfully, glancing out at the lake glistening under the setting sun. Jake felt a spark. What if he could make this place more than just a vacation spot? What if he could help others find connection, laughter, memory making, just like he had once done here many years ago? Days turned into nights as Jake engaged with staff and guests alike, slowly shedding his doubts. He made it a point to join Mia on activities like paddleboarding and fishing. With each interaction, he felt more grounded, more at home. It was as if he had stumbled upon a treasure he didn't even know he was missing. On a particularly beautiful morning, Jake gathered the staff for a meeting. He had put some thoughts together, excitement bubbling up within him. He suggested. Mia's face lit up. That's a fantastic idea. The energy in the room surged as staff members chimed in with ideas, constructs of joy interweaving rapidly. As Jake listened, he marveled at how everyone seemed to thrive off one another's enthusiasm. The preparations for the family weekend escalated into a flurry of activity. Jake jumped in wholeheartedly, joining the team in setting up, crafting signs, organizing games. The excitement in the air was electric, and slowly he began to recognize his place in this newfound world. When the family weekend finally arrived, it was a radiant day filled with laughter echoing across the property. Families poured in, eyes shining with anticipation. Jake stood at the entrance, welcoming guests, the sun kissing his cheeks. He felt a sense of purpose that he hadn't experienced in years. That evening, as music filled the air, families gathered under festoon lights strung between trees. Children giggled, running through the grass, while adults shared stories and meals. Joy painted smiles across faces, a vibrant tapestry of community weaving around him. But then, without warning, dark clouds rolled in. The comforting sounds of laughter were soon drowned out by the boom of thunder. Rain began to pour and guests scurried for shelter. Panic gripped Jake's gut. All their hard work, all the preparations, it was unraveling in front of him. Jake, Mia called over the chaos, grabbing his arm. We can move everything indoors. Her sheer determination ignited a flame within him. You're right, the staff quickly mobilized, moving tables and decorations inside. Jake joined the effort, helping to create a blend of laughter and warmth within the lodge as families crowded together, sheltering from the rain. What could have been a disaster transformed into a unique bonding experience as they played games, shared stories, and created memories that felt woven into the fabric of their lives. As the night progressed, the storm subsided and laughter filled the air once again. They gathered around a fire, with s'mores melting and eager hands and tales being shared under the twinkling stars. Jake looked around, feeling the warmth of community wrap around him. Something beautiful had emerged from the storm, an unbreakable bond. As fall rolled in, Jake found himself reflecting on the community that had formed around the resort. Families returned year after year, not just for the beautiful scenery, but for the connections they built. Staff members became friends, sharing not just work but lives. Yet as winter approached, attendance began to dwindle. Jake faced a new challenge: how to sustain the love and spirit they had cultivated. The weight of ownership pressed hard against him. One day, during a quiet moment, Mia approached him. I'm worried about the slow season, he admitted. How do we keep the spirit alive? Mia nodded, understanding the weight of his concern. Let's brainstorm ideas. There are always ways to bring in visitors, even through the winter months. Together, they created plans for seasonal celebrations. As the holidays approached, they transformed the resort into a winter wonderland, featuring a Christmas market, hot cocoa stands, and events that drew people in from miles away. The sense of community grew even deeper as people came together to enjoy the festive cheer. Snow fell gently outside, but inside, the lodge glowed with warmth. Families gathered, reuniting, reminiscing, and sharing traditions. Jake found joy in this new rhythm, realizing that the essence of the resort was never just about the property. It was woven into the lives of those who entered. Years passed in a whirl of laughter and memories, and Jake felt the weight of ownership morph into a beautiful responsibility. He had not only inherited a resort, he had inherited connections, love, and laughter. One ordinary afternoon, as Jake sat on the porch watching children play by the lake, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him. This place was no longer just an inheritance, it was his heart, his home. He had built something beautiful from the ground up, and it had changed him forever. Mia approached, leaning against the railing beside him. "Look at what you've created." Jake smiled, planting his hands on his hips, his heart full. "It really is." "Sometimes the things we resist are the things we need the most," she said softly. He nodded, understanding the truth in her words. This wasn't just about owning a hotel, it was about belonging, contributing to something larger than himself. In that moment, Jake knew he hadn't just checked into a resort. He had checked into a new life filled with love, laughter, and community, a life he would cherish forever. The heavy door creaked open, revealing the warm glow of the Lakeside Resort lobby. Jake Martinez stepped inside, momentarily taken aback by the familiarity of the place. Memories washed over him like the gentle waves lapping at the shore outside. This was the same resort where he had spent countless summers as a child with his grandmother, but today felt different. Instead of joy, there was an inexplicable weight in his chest. The receptionist chirped, a bright smile plastered on her face. "Hi, I'm Jake Martinez, just checking in," he replied, his voice slightly wavering. Beneath the surface, his thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and nostalgia. "Let me pull up your reservation," she said, her fingers dancing over the keyboard. A moment passed, and her cheerful demeanor shifted into something more serious. Mr. Martinez." Jake's heart raced. A mix-up, his world tilted, the ground beneath him feeling temporarily unsteady. The words barely escaped his mouth. "Yes, your grandmother left it to you in her will, the entire resort." A tight knot formed in his stomach, thoughts colliding in a chaotic dance. All those summers spent here flashed before his eyes, his grandmother's warm laugh, the memories of fishing and swimming, but owning the place felt utterly surreal. Jake forced out, half in disbelief. "Absolutely, let me get your paperwork," she said, her fingers flying back to her keyboard. Within moments, she produced a folder, handing it to him with a wide smile. "Here you go, welcome back, Mr. Martinez." Stunned, he accepted the folder, feeling the weight of responsibility begin to settle heavy on his shoulders. What did this mean? Before he could wrap his mind around his new reality, he made his way to the suite. As he entered, the room enveloped him in a nostalgic embrace, the view of the shimmering lake taking him back to simpler times. Jake plopped down on the plush couch, staring at the well-worn books on the coffee table, books his grandmother had cherished. Everything about the place felt alive with memories, yet here he was, a stranger in his own inheritance. He couldn't shake the unease building within him, thoughts spiraling. Did he even want to own this place? After a couple of hours of wrestling with self-doubt, he stood up and decided to take a walk. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Families were gathered on the shores, laughter filling the air, and for a fleeting moment he felt a pang of envy. They were living life while he was lost in a maze of confusion. A cheerful voice interrupted his thoughts. A woman dressed in a bright sundress waved enthusiastically. "Just trying to get my bearings," Jake replied, offering a slight smile. "I'm Mia," she said, extending her hand. "If you need a guide, I'd be happy to show you around." Jake hesitated but found himself drawn to her enthusiasm. As they walked, Mia shared stories about the resort. Each tale transformed the place into something more than just property. It became a living entity woven with experiences. She pointed to a fishing dock, recalling the times families gathered to reel in their first catch, and described the hidden trails that unveiled breathtaking views of the lake. "This place is magical," Jake said, feeling a flicker of hope ignite inside him. "It really is, and you can harness that magic too," Mia said playfully, nudging him with her elbow. He chuckled nervously. The thought felt daunting, but there was something about Mia's confidence that made him reconsider. For the next few days, Jake immersed himself in the rhythm of the resort. He took part in activities, joined casual conversations with staff, and dived into the memories of the place. Little by little, the knot in his stomach began to loosen. He felt a connection forming not just to the resort, but to the people who breathed life into it. One evening over dinner, he gathered the staff in the dining room. The energy buzzed with excitement. "I was thinking," Jake began, "why not host a family weekend?" Mia's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's an amazing idea." Jake felt a surge of confidence pulse through him. With each contribution from the staff, excitement grew and the vision began to take shape. The prospect transformed from an idea into something tangible, a festival of community and joy. As the family weekend approached, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Jake couldn't help but feel nervous. Would people enjoy it? Would he be able to pull it off? When the weekend finally arrived, families streamed in, filling the resort with laughter and cheer. Jake stood outside, taking it all in, the warmth of connection wrapped around him like a cozy blanket. The day turned into an emotional roller coaster with activities filled to the brim. Children darted across the grass, joys as bright as the summer sun. Food trucks lined the main road, and music echoed through the air, creating an atmosphere so rich with vivacity that Jake began to lose himself in the moment. But then, the storm clouds rolled in. Dark shadows stretched across the sky, and suddenly the gentle whisper of the breeze turned into an angry howl. Rain began to pour, soaking everything in its path. Panic welled up inside Jake. The heart of the weekend felt like it was unraveling right in front of him. "Mia," he yelled above the roar of the storm. "Refocus." She was calm, determined, and it grounded him. With urgency, they flew into action, moving the festival indoors. Tables, decorations, food, and laughter followed. As guests poured into the lodge, Jake could feel the energy shift. What had initially felt like disaster transformed into creativity and resilience. Families found comfort as they played games, shared stories, and created new memories amidst the chaos. By the end of the night, they gathered around a fire inside the lodge, laughter blending with the sound of the rain hammering against the windows. Jake watched in sheer awe as connections blossomed in every corner of the room. It was raw, authentic, and exactly what he had hoped for. As the guests began to leave, families approached Jake to thank him. Their eyes glimmered with joy and gratitude. A mother exclaimed, holding her child's hand. Another added before they made their way back to their cars. In that moment, Jake realized he had truly forged a bond with the community. They weren't just visitors, they were part of a living story that he had quietly entered. As the seasons changed, the resort began to evolve with them. Jake poured his heart into planning activities that would bring the spirit of the place to life. Autumn brought harvest festivals, and winter became a canvas for holiday magic. Each event deepened connections with guests and staff alike, and slowly, the resort transformed into a cherished refuge for many. Yet as winter settled in, Jake faced a daunting reality. Visitors dwindled as the cold months took hold. Dreams of connection began to feel fragile, and the pressure of ownership sat heavily on his shoulders. He could feel fear creeping in like an unwelcome guest. One crisp winter day, Mia found him sitting on the porch, staring into the distance. She asked, sensing his unease. "I'm worried about how quiet it's been. I don't want to lose the magic we built," he confessed. Mia's expression softened. "You can't control everything, Jake, but you can adapt. Think about what people want during this time." Her words struck a chord. Together, they brainstormed ideas for holiday gatherings and cozy winter retreats. They invited guests to experience the magic of winter, to slow down and find warmth in connections. The resort transformed into a holiday haven. Twinkling lights sparkled like stars against the soft snow. As families returned, laughter filled the air once more. Jake found a profound sense of peace, knowing he was creating a space that felt like home. He didn't just own the resort, he had become a steward of memories, happiness, and togetherness. Years passed and turned into beautiful seasons of laughter, friendships, and bittersweet farewells as guests left to return to their lives. Jake found himself at the heart of each gathering, each joyous occasion, and each personal story shared. One afternoon, Jake stood by the lake watching children play, their laughter harmonizing with the gentle rustling of the trees. He realized that the resort had evolved into more than just a business. It had become a sanctuary for those seeking joy and connection. Mia's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him from his reverie. Jake smiled, his heart full. "It's amazing, isn't it? It's not just a resort," she said, the sincerity evident in her voice. He nodded, her words wrapping around him like a warm embrace. What had started as an unexpected inheritance had blossomed into a thriving community, knitted together by love and shared experiences. In that moment, standing by the lake with his heart full and the sun shining down, Jake knew he hadn't just checked into a resort. He had checked into a new life, a life filled with laughter, resilience, and connection. The legacy he inherited had morphed into something beautiful, a family of choice forged by shared memories. Jake Martinez had truly found his place, not just as an owner, but as a beloved part of a community woven together by all the moments that made life truly meaningful. Jake stood in the gleaming lobby of the Lakeside Resort, feeling a mix of nostalgia and uncertainty swirl inside him. The air was filled with the scent of fresh coffee and pine, a comforting reminder of summers spent in this picturesque place. But today he felt out of place, as if he were wandering through a memory rather than a reality. His late grandmother had always raved about this resort, cherished the moments spent here, yet he had never imagined inheriting it, much less owning it. The cheerful receptionist, a young woman with sparkling eyes and a bright smile, instantly broke the solemn mood. "I'm Jake Martinez, just checking in," he replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. She typed quickly on her keyboard, her smile slowly fading. "Mr. Martinez," her eyes widened, excitement flickering. "Actually, it appears." Jake's heart raced, disbelief twisting his gut. "Yes, your grandmother left it to you in her will, the cabins, the beach, everything." Her voice was bright, filled with enthusiasm, but for Jake, the ground felt like it was shifting beneath him. Stunned, he blinked, trying to digest her words. 1,000 memories surged through his mind, his grandmother's laughter echoing in the lake's gentle waves, the warmth of family gatherings. And now, suddenly, all of that was his. But what did that even mean? he asked, an uneasy chuckle escaping his lips. Absolutely. She beckoned him to the desk, her fingers tapping away, filling the air with an upbeat energy. Jake stood, grappling with the words he could hardly believe. He took the folder she handed him, confusion swirling around him. The weight of reality pressed down on his shoulders. He was here to escape life, yet reality had thrown him into a new one altogether. After she handed him the key, he made his way to his suite. The moments felt surreal, like drifting in and out of a dream. The suite was beautifully furnished, bathed in natural light, but all Jake could think about was the enormity of what he had just learned. He sank onto the plush couch, staring out at the lake where the sun glistened like tiny diamonds on the water's surface. What did it mean to own this beautiful retreat? Would people expect him to run it? The thought brought an unsettling sense of dread, eclipsing the excitement he knew he should feel. After hours of restless contemplation, he decided to take a walk and clear his head. Outside, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting warm hues across the landscape. As families gathered and children laughed on the beach, he felt an unexpected pang of longing. They were joyful he was lost. A cheerful voice interrupted his thoughts. A woman with sun-kissed skin and a radiant smile strolled toward him. Sort of, Jake replied, forcing a smile. I'm Mia, she said, extending her hand. I've worked here for a couple of years. Thanks, but I think I'm all right, he said, hesitantly backing away. Come on, she urged, her brightness infectious. Jake chuckled. Let me change that. As she guided him through the resort, Jake found himself captivated by her enthusiasm. She pointed out the fishing docks where families gathered, recounted stories of kids catching their first fish, and spoke of secret trails leading to stunning views of the lake and surrounding mountains. This place is magical, Mia said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jake felt something stir inside him. Could he maybe be a part of that magic too? You know, you can really make a difference here, she suggested, her tone teasing yet hopeful. Me. Barely manage my own life, he admitted, laughing nervously. Well, this place seems to have a way of changing people, she said, her eyes narrowing playfully. For the next few days, Jake immersed himself in the rhythm of the resort. He slowly began to notice that each wave of laughter from families made the grounds come alive. As he engaged with the staff and guests, his unease began to fade. One evening after dinner, he gathered the staff together in the dining room. Why don't we host a family weekend? Mia's eyes lit up. That's an amazing idea. The entire room buzzed with excitement. Ideas flowed like wine, laughter filling the air. With every suggestion, the vision for the family weekend grew clearer, larger in scope, and Jake felt more and more like a part of this vibrant community. As they prepared for the weekend, Jake was swept up in the energy around him. He helped organize activities, liaised with local vendors, and painted signs that would welcome families to the event. The anticipation was contagious. He could feel his heart racing with excitement. Finally, the day arrived. Families streamed in, filling the resort with joy and laughter, and Jake felt uncharacteristically proud. He marveled to Mia as they watched families engage in tug-of-war and sack races. Drink it in, Jake, she exclaimed, but then the sky darkened. A gust of wind howled, sending chills prickling down Jake's spine. Suddenly, the downpour began. Rain came crashing down like 1,000 drums, drowning out the jubilant sounds of the weekend. Panic gripped his heart and he ran outside to see families scrambling for cover. He shouted, his voice nearly drowned out by the storm. Stay calm, Mia shouted back, her resolve unshakable. Jake swallowed hard, uncertainty clawing at him, but as he looked around, he saw determination in the eyes of the staff. They hustled to gather tables, chairs, and decorations, moving quickly to adjust. Without thinking, he joined them, his heart racing. Inside, they repositioned tables and swept away chairs, creating a new atmosphere. What could have been a disaster transformed into moments of unity. Families found comfort in engaging with one another. Children began to play board games, and laughter filled the halls again, creating a cozy refuge from the storm outside. By nightfall, the storm had passed, but Jake realized something had shifted within him. They gathered near an indoor fire, sharing stories while a local band played softly in the background. As smiling faces surrounded him, he felt a swell of joy and pride in what they created together. When families began to leave the next day, many approached Jake, their eyes filled with gratitude. A mother exclaimed, her child smiling broadly at her side. Your vision brought us all together, another added, disappearing into the distance. In that moment, Jake found himself overwhelmed with emotion. He hadn't just inherited a resort, he had nurtured a community, one vibrant and alive. As the seasons turned, the resort continued to flourish. New families returned, their laughter blending with the whispers of the wind, and a new rhythm took hold. Jake took charge, learning the intricacies of hospitality, embracing the warmth of community forged in laughter and joy. But winter loomed, casting a shadow over the holiday season. As guests dwindled, a sense of worry seeped into Jake's heart. Would they lose everything they had built? One chilly afternoon, as Jake stood on the porch looking out over the snow-covered landscape, Mia emerged from behind him. She asked, her tone caring. I'm worried about the slow season, he confessed. There's always a way to adapt, Mia said, her voice a reassuring balm. Think about what people look for during winter. You're right, Jake murmured. With her encouragement igniting a fire inside him, he began drafting ideas for winter-themed events like holiday markets, snow activities, and cozy gatherings around fire pits. As winter descended, the resort transformed into a holiday haven, alive with twinkling lights and cheerful decorations. Families embraced the spirit of the season, returning to share warmth and connection. For Jake, each event felt more meaningful than the last. One cold night, sitting with families around a bonfire, he realized he wasn't just an owner. He was a guardian of memories, forging bonds that transcended the seasons. Years flowed by, bringing cycles of laughter, joy, and bittersweet farewells. Jake stood at the heart of the resort, witnessing love bloom all around him. It wasn't just a destination, it was a living testament to the joy that stemmed from connections. One afternoon, as Jake gazed across the lush landscape, he felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. This resort, once his grandmother's legacy, had transformed into a home, a place where everyone belonged. Mia's voice broke through his thoughts, her smile radiant. Jake chuckled, his heart warm with affection. "You didn't just inherit a resort, you created a family," she said softly, and her words resonated within him. As he sat by the lake, surrounded by the vibrant life that blossomed with each season, he knew that he hadn't just checked into a hotel, but into a new chapter, a new life filled with laughter, memories, and belonging. Jake Martinez had found home, not just in a place, but in a beautiful mosaic of human connection. Jake stepped inside the Lakeside Resort lobby, the heavy wooden door creaking behind him. He paused for a moment, taking in the familiar scent of pine and the cheerful buzz of families enjoying their vacation. This place had been his grandmother's favorite getaway, her sanctuary filled with laughter and love. But as he wandered inside, he felt like an intruder in a space steeped in precious memories. Said a bright-eyed receptionist, her smile warm and inviting. "I'm Jake Martinez, just checking in," he replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. The receptionist's fingers danced over the keyboard, her eyes narrowing as she scrolled through the screen. Suddenly, her cheerful demeanor shifted, and a look of surprise washed over her face. "I'm Mr. Martinez." Jake's heart raced. A mistake. She leaned closer, almost conspiratorial. Jake stammered, disbelief flooding his senses. Yes, your grandmother left it to you in her will. The cabins, the beach, everything, all of it." Time seemed to stand still. He felt the ground shifting beneath him, a wave of confusion crashing over him. His grandmother had spoken lovingly of this place, sharing tales of summer escapades and cherished moments, but owning it, it felt unreal, like stepping into a dream he hadn't signed up for. He asked, trying to laugh off the absurdity. "Absolutely, let me get your paperwork," she said, excitement bubbling over as she began typing furiously on her keyboard. Jake stood there numb as she handed him a folder and a brass key. She chirped, practically beaming with joy. He took a deep breath, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him as he made his way to his suite. Each step felt like a plunge into uncharted waters, and despite the beauty surrounding him, he couldn't shake the feeling of being utterly lost. It was as if he had stepped into a fairy tale, but he was still searching for the narrative, the purpose of it all. Once inside his suite, he dropped his bag on the plush carpet and sank onto the couch. The view of the lake was breathtaking, shimmering like a brightly colored canvas under the dusk sun. But instead of feeling exhilarated, he felt overwhelmed, grappling with what this new reality meant. What would people expect from him? How was he supposed to manage a resort? Thinking he needed a clear head, Jake decided to explore the grounds. The sun was dipping, casting warm hues across the landscape, and a cool breeze tickled his skin. As he strolled outside, he saw families laughing, children splashing in the water, and couples strolling hand in hand. Their joy felt like a stark contrast to the vortex of uncertainty swirling within him. "Hey there," a lively voice broke through his thoughts. A woman in a colorful sundress approached, her energy infectious. "Just trying to find my way," he replied, offering a half-hearted smile. "I'm Mia," she said, extending her hand. "Are you new around here?" Sure," he said, feeling strangely comforted by her enthusiasm. She quickly guided him through the property, pointing out key spots, the best places to fish, the secret hiking trails, and the ideal locations for sunset views. As she spoke, Jake was captivated. Mia's passion for the resort was palpable. This wasn't just a job for her, she was part of its heartbeat. "I've worked here for a few years," she said, turning serious for a moment. "And every family that comes through our doors becomes a part of this place." Her words resonated with him, memories. That's what he had come here, seeking a moment of clarity amid the chaos. But could he create that kind of experience for others as the owner? As they reached the lake, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in vibrant shades of orange and pink. He watched families darting from the shoreline, their laughter and joy floating on the breeze. Jake felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "Maybe I can help make this place even better," he mused aloud. Mia turned, a playful spark in her eyes. "It's in you, you just have to tap into it." Jake chuckled, the weight of his doubts momentarily lifted. Could he really make a difference here? As days flew by, Jake continued to engage with Mia and the staff who welcomed him into their fold. The more he learned about what made the resort special, the more he felt a stirring spirit inside him. He drew energy from their camaraderie, the laughter, and the shared memories. On a bright morning, brimming with newfound confidence, he gathered the staff for a meeting. "I have an idea," he announced, his voice stronger than he felt. "Why not host a family weekend?" Mia's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's a brilliant idea." Their brainstorming session erupted into a flurry of energy. Ideas bounced around the room and the atmosphere crackled with excitement. Jake felt his insecurities fading as he became immersed in this collective vision, a tapestry of joy waiting to be woven. As the family weekend approached, Jake poured himself into organizing the event. It was invigorating. He met vendors, designed activities, and printed colorful flyers. Families began to arrive, and the air was thick with anticipation. And then the day arrived. Families streamed in, filling every nook and cranny with laughter and happiness. Jake stood at the entrance, welcoming guests, his heart pounding with pride. He marveled to Mia as children raced by, giggling and chasing each other. She replied, a smile lighting up her face. But just as everything felt perfect, dark clouds loomed overhead. A sudden gust of wind swirled around them, bringing with it an ominous chill. Before they could react, the sky opened up and rain poured down, drenching everything in seconds. Mia, panic clawed at Jake's throat. "Stay calm," she called back, her eyes filled with determination. Jake felt the rising tide of anxiety crashing within him, but Mia's resolve propelled him forward. "You're right." With urgency, they rushed to gather tables, games, and decorations, shifting the festival indoors. To his surprise, the guests followed suit, laughter blending with the sound of the rain hammering against the building. As they rearranged their new space, Jake began to see a shift. What could have been a disastrous storm rapidly morphed into a unique bonding experience. Inside the lodge, couples played cards in cozy corners, while kids dashed around laughing and playing hide-and-seek among the tables. Soon they gathered around an impromptu stage where one of the local musicians had begun to play. The energy in the room was infectious, and Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swelling in his chest. As the night unfolded, the storm outside faded into nothing more than a dull roar. Jake realized that they had turned a potential disaster into a night to remember. When the guests finally began to leave, they were filled with joy, their spirits unbroken. A father exclaimed, his son at his side. Jake felt his chest tighten as the weight of their kind words washed over him. They hadn't just come to visit a resort, he had created a community. As seasons slipped by, the resort flourished. Families returned year after year, eager to relive the experiences they had created together. Jake became immersed in the world of hospitality, learning the ropes, forging relationships, and nurturing the spirit of the place. But winter arrived, shrouding the resort in an icy grasp. The once bustling energy dwindled, and Jake's heart sank with each passing day. Would the love and joy they'd cultivated survive the slower season? One chilling afternoon, as he stood on the porch staring into the vast white landscape, Mia stepped up beside him. She asked softly, "I'm worried about how quiet it's been. I don't want to lose everything we've built here," he admitted, the vulnerability spilling forth. Mia's expression softened, her gaze unwavering. "You can adapt. There are always ways to bring people together." Her words ignited a spark in him. They began brainstorming ideas: holiday markets, snow activities, winter retreats. Slowly but surely, Jake felt hope returning. They began to transform the resort into a winter wonderland filled with cheer, warmth, and connection. As snowflakes gently fell, families arrived to experience the magic of winter at the Lakeside Resort. They gathered around crackling fires, shared stories, and created cherished memories. The resort had become a beacon of light during the dark months. One evening, as Jake sat around the fire with guests, he couldn't help but feel the love radiating from all sides. He looked at the people gathered together, old friends and new faces, all sharing laughter and stories. This was his family now. Days became years, and as he watched children grow and families return, Jake came to understand the true essence of what he had inherited. It was more than just property. It was a legacy filled with heart and connection. It was a sanctuary for joy, love, and laughter, a refuge for those seeking solace in a busy world. Standing by the lake one late afternoon, Jake felt a wave of contentment washing over him. He had transformed from a man lost in uncertainty to a leader, the steward of a bustling community of love and togetherness. "Jake, look at what you've built," Mia said, her voice breaking through his reverie. He turned to her, a smile stretching across his face. "You didn't just inherit a resort," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. And in that moment, as the sun set in a blaze of colors, Jake understood the truth of her words. He hadn't simply checked into a resort, he had checked into his new life, a life defined by authenticity, connection, and the unbreakable bonds of community. In that beautiful, picturesque place, he had learned that home isn't just a roof over your head, it's where your heart truly belongs. Jake stepped over the threshold of the Lakeside Resort, the heavy wooden door creaking softly as it swung shut behind him. The air was thick with the scent of pine and freshly brewed coffee, stirring memories from childhood summers spent here with his grandmother. He felt both comforted and lost, nostalgic yet restless. As he approached the front desk, he could hear laughter bursting from families gathered in the lobby, a sound that felt distant, almost foreign. The receptionist chimed, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Hi, I'm Jake Martinez." "Just checking in," he said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions roiling inside. She typed swiftly on her keyboard, her cheerful smile faltering as her fingers paused over the screen. Mr. Martinez." Jake's heart raced. A mix-up. She looked up, her expression shifting from friendly to astonished. The words hung in the air, the weight of them crashing into Jake like a wave. He managed, feeling like he'd stepped into a scene from a movie. She exclaimed, clearly unable to contain her excitement. Time seemed to freeze. Jake could hardly process her words. Memories of joyful summers flooded his mind. He had always known how much his grandmother loved this place, but ownership, that felt surreal. "You must be mistaken," he said, half laughing, half skeptical. "Absolutely not. Let me get your paperwork," she insisted, flipping through documents on her desk. As Jake stood there, his emotions swirled a cocktail of disbelief, excitement, and an overwhelming sense of dread. This was supposed to be a simple escape from his hectic city life, not a leap into ownership. "Here you go. Welcome back to Lakeside. You're going to love it here," she said, her enthusiasm almost palpable. Forcing a smile, he took the keys, but the weight of their implications settled heavy in his stomach as he made his way to his suite. The journey felt longer than it was, every footfall echoing in his mind. What did it mean to be the owner of a resort? His heart raced at the thought. Would he be expected to manage staff, create memorable experiences for guests? His palms began to sweat. Once inside the suite, he dropped his bag, his breath catching in his throat. The room was beautifully decorated, with large windows showcasing a breathtaking view of the lake. It felt like stepping into a postcard. Jake sank into the plush sofa but couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in his own inheritance. He glanced at his phone, no messages. He was alone. "I wanted an escape," he whispered to himself. Not. After a few hours of wrestling with his thoughts, he decided to wander outside. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm hues of orange and pink across the lake. Families gathered on the shore, laughter ringing out like music. As he walked, he felt an unexpected pang in his chest, a longing for what he once had a sense of connection and belonging. A friendly voice broke through his thoughts. A woman with sun-kissed skin and a bright smile approached him, her spirit radiating warmth. "You look a bit lost." Yeah, I'm Jake, just checking in," he said, trying to hide his confusion. "Nice to meet you, Jake. If you're new here, I'd love to show you around." "Well, I've been here before, but it feels different now," he admitted, the reality of his situation washing over him again. "Trust me," Mia insisted, her enthusiasm infectious. As Mia led him through the resort, something inside Jake began to thaw. She pointed out hidden trails, the best fishing spots, and lovely picnic areas. Her passion for the resort was palpable, and for the first time he felt a flicker of excitement. "You know, it's not just a resort," she said, glancing at him seriously. "It's about making memories." Jake contemplated her words. Memories. Maybe this wasn't just a burden. Maybe he could create something beautiful here, something that honored his grandmother's legacy. As they reached the dock, where the sun dipped below the horizon, he took a deep breath and decided to embrace this unexpected twist. "You're right, I can make a difference," he said, a confident edge creeping into his voice. Mia grinned, nudging him playfully. Jake felt a surge of hope as he returned to his suite later that night, the weight of responsibility shifting to a sense of purpose. He lay awake, his mind racing with ideas, envisioning how he could breathe new life into the resort. Days turned into a blur of activity as Jake engaged more with the staff. He joined Mia and others for morning meetings, their laughter and camaraderie slowly melting away the walls of doubt around him. He felt his confidence grow as he began to understand the culture of the resort. Then came the idea that sparked his spirit. He suggested one morning, "Games, barbecues, music," Mia exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. The planning sessions became electric. Ideas bounced around the room like popcorn, and for the first time in a long while, Jake felt truly alive. Each staff member contributed, bringing their unique flair to the table. Excitement bubbled up in his chest as he envisioned families laughing, having fun, and building lasting memories. As the weekend approached, however, doubt began to creep in. What if people didn't show up? What if they hated it? His mind raced with worst-case scenarios, but Mia's unwavering optimism kept him anchored. "Trust me, Jake. We're all in this together," she reassured him, a bright smile never leaving her face. The day of the family weekend finally arrived, and the resort buzzed with life. Families began to stream in, children bouncing with eagerness. Jake stood at the entrance, joy bubbling within him but mixed with that nagging fear. Would this be a success? He marveled to Mia as families danced and played games. She cheered, beaming with pride, but just as everything felt perfect, dark clouds loomed above. The wind picked up, turning playful laughter into trembling uncertainty. Suddenly, the sky opened and rain poured down, drenching everything in seconds. Panic gripped Jake's heart as families scrambled for cover. Mia, he shouted over the downpour, terror coursing through him. Stay calm, she shouted back, unfazed. Jake felt a wave of anxiety rising, but he took a deep breath, determined not to let this moment slip away. Okay. In a flurry, they began moving everything: indoor tables, chairs, decorations. What could have been a disaster became a newfound challenge, and Jake felt an infectious energy rising around him. Families seemed unfazed by the rain, quickly finding comfort in the lodge as laughter resumed. Children played card games, families shared stories, and suddenly the atmosphere transformed into a cozy sanctuary away from the storm. As they constructed a new atmosphere, a musician joined in, strumming a guitar and filling the room with music. By the end of the night, Jake couldn't believe how well they had rebounded. People were gathered around a fire, smiles on their faces as they shared toast and laughter. He watched in awe, realizing they had converted a rainy day into something extraordinary. When families finally left that night, he received heartfelt thanks, many expressing their joy. You turned our weekend around. A father said, his son beaming by his side. Jake's heart swelled. He hadn't just hosted a weekend, he had built a community, one that celebrated joy in the face of adversity. As winter settled in, the resort took on a different character. Families would return, but attendance waned and fear began to creep back into Jake's heart. Each day felt heavier as the reality of ownership loomed larger, and soon he was staring into an uncertain future. One icy morning, he stood on the porch, snowflakes drifting down around him. Mia approached, sensing his unease. She asked softly, "I'm worried," he admitted, glancing out at the empty grounds. Mia's expression turned serious as she joined him, gazing out at the landscape. "You can adapt. People want to experience winter's magic too." Her words struck a chord deep within him. Slowly, an idea began to form. What if instead of fearing the winter season, he embraced it? What if he made the resort a haven for those seeking joy and warmth in the colder months? Inspired, Jake began drafting plans for holiday markets, winter festivals, and cozy retreats. Together, he and Mia brainstormed ways to fill the resort with warm fire pits, hot cocoa stations, and winter crafts. As they brought their ideas to life, the resort transformed into a winter wonderland, a gem sparkling in the snow. Families began arriving, drawn in by the holiday spirit. Jake was filled with a sense of purpose, watching children marvel at everything he had created. But as he basked in the glow of success, his phone buzzed ominously in his pocket. He pulled it out, noticing a text from his lawyer, a simple message that made his stomach drop. "We need to discuss the estate." His heart raced as he felt the ground shift beneath him again. What could possibly go wrong now? As he looked out at the bustling resort, laughter ringing through the air, uncertainty crept into his mind once more. Had he truly found home, or was it all about to slip away?